What's with these damn ducks? What? I need to get my ducks in a row. All lined up, something for the portfolio, so I can help the business grow. Oh, I see. Well, here, let me show you a finance channel that'll know the answers to your questions and everything you need to level up, to get these damn ducks in a row.
Hey, Dustin, thank you so much for agreeing to have this interview. I'm really excited to talk to you. I have so many questions. So you're a real estate agent. You're also a landlord. How long have you been a real estate agent?
I got my license in 2018, beginning of the year 2018.
Okay. 2021, 22, 23, 24. So about 6 years.
Yeah.
So were you buying? Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yes, about 6 years.
Were you buying real estate before you became a real estate agent?
I was not. No.
Okay. So I have a question. Grant Cardone and the guy that wrote the book, I Will Teach You to Be Rich, I think his name is Ramik. They both say on a regular basis that there's no reason for an American person to own a home unless they're owning multifamily units or Grant says there's no reason to own a single family home for any reason. What do you think about that? How do you feel? And he has so much money and so much clout and so much popularity that people are listening to him because of those reasons. What do you think?
There's some truth to it. I mean, honestly, there's a lot of truth actually in that, in the sense of, I think that they word it, and it's a little clickbaity, but they word it as it's the worst investment that you can make. And there is a portion of that if there are people that are looking to invest in a home that they're going to live in, a single family residence is not what I would suggest as an investment. That wouldn't be something that I would push my clients or push my investors into and say, yeah, own these. I think the issue there is that these, just like in the clip you sent me, the shorts are without context. Now, the Ramik video goes a little bit into detail, and I really think he is expanding on what Grant is speaking of. As an investment, there's a lot of options out there for people. People that think they're buying their single family residence, their first home, as an investment home, you got to know your numbers. If you're in it for investment, then you need to know exactly your overhead, no different from any other investment that you could make. You need to know your overhead. You need to know your annual cost. There's a lot of things that you need to go in knowing. And I'll be honest with you, even people that tell me that they are utilizing their first home as an investment, 99% of them are not investors. They're not thinking in that way. They're misquoting themselves. They're thinking of it as a bank account, which is a lot better of a perception than an investment account or a portion of their portfolio. But I would agree with a portion of that of, yes, absolutely. If you're coming in and thinking that you're investing in homes and you're going to start with your first home that you're buying and you think that makes you an investor, you're probably incorrect. It is more of a bank account that might catapult you into investments in the future. And in that case, for most people, it is a bad investment. But if you know those numbers, know what you're putting in, I think I can speak from experience. I've had plenty of clients that have bankrolled a 137,000 townhome into for them, they wanted to bankroll it into $1 million home. And I've seen them do it over the span of 7, 8 years, maybe. So I would consider that investment in a different strategy, but I think you got to know those numbers and really define what your goal is when you come to purchasing a home. Absolutely.
Right. So my dad always says that you're going to need somewhere to live as long as you're alive. So you might as well buy a house. And even if you move, sell that house, buy another one, because you're always going to need somewhere to live. And outside of being an investment, why wouldn't home ownership be pushed on everybody? Because it's a fixed mortgage. if you get a fixed mortgage. You know what you're going to pay. It's easier to budget. Your landlord isn't going up on the rent every year. And I think it's easier to just figure out your life when you own a home and you have a steady payment.
Yeah.
So why isn't that pushed more?
Well, I think it is pushed. I think that it's just not the sexy. It's not as sexy as what other people say. You look at people and it's everything that you digest or look at. If you go type in real estate right now on YouTube, it's all about the sexy thing of house hack and do this and do that. But honestly, there's people that are able to, like you said, I always tell people, you can't live in your stock portfolio. You can't stay there. You can't spend the night and take warm showers in your stock portfolio, but you can in a house that can, if you do it right, it can appreciate. But I think that we're seeing a generation. It's weird because I was just actually reading something the other day. It was just an article and I hadn't looked into it much, but everybody wants to break down the Gen Z and they're doing this and this is what they're, and I was actually seeing numbers that like younger people are actually coming back into the market to purchase single family residences and don't want to live combined lifestyles anymore. They want to have their own space. So it seems like we're trending back towards that. But I think that what it comes down to in that question is your lifestyle. If you have a lifestyle, and I think Ramik spoke to it a little more of, I don't want to take care of things. I don't want to worry about maintenance cost. I don't want to worry about taxes and things like that. I would rather be, I call them fleet of foot. I'd rather be fleet of foot. I will deal with the con of knowing that my rent could get raised. There's an instability. I am gaining no equity. I think people are knowing a lot of this because I think that is broadcasted to a lot of people as punishment for not owning a home. And I think that there's some people that just based off their lifestyle that they don't feel like they want to be held down in a mortgage. But obviously I can speak from the other side where I see a lot of success stories based off of people actually purchasing, having a mortgage, you have somewhere to live, and then making that transition as far as, I've had people walk away from selling their first house with $175,000 in their pocket after all fees and everything. And even, being able to put more money into a nicer, bigger house, having money set aside. It is quote unquote kind of the American dream still for some people. I'm personally a fan of the stability. My business obviously is a fan of the stability.
Yeah.
But I think people that don't do it are just more lifestyle, and it's their trend of, I would rather be able to pick up and move and go wherever I would like and not have the responsibility of dealing with transactions or with any type of maintenance. I think that most people run from that as well.
Right. So random story. Once upon a time, I was living with my parents and I couldn't afford rent because I was paying rent on office space, trying to grow my business. Mm-hmm. So instead of paying rent, I was, living with my parents and I was paying office space rent and paying staff and everything like that. So my mom got a little spicy with me, and we figured out that me living there wasn't going to work long term. And so I started I was of a certain age, and I felt like I should own a home, and if I move out, I should buy a house. So I was talking to my parents. They've been homeowners my whole life. They've been living in the same house for the last 50 years, over 50 years. In Park Hill. So they're stable. They know about buying houses. I went to my parents and I was like, hey, you guys, I want to buy a house. I've been pre-approved for this much. In my head, we were going to have a house hunters moment. And where we were going to go and look for houses. They were like, no, you need to go find somewhere to rent. Hurry up and get out. No, I don't think that's going to work. So I'm driving around, Dustin, get this. And I'm just like, I see a house. And I was like, this house looks so nice. I would love to live here. I take down the number. It says for sale. I call the number and I say, I don't have any money. And I don't know how pre-qualification works or anything like that. Can I rent your house starting tomorrow? And then eventually I want to buy it. And they were like, yeah. I was like, okay. So my first house I moved into, and it's 4 bedrooms. And then again, everybody kept asking me like, why so many bedrooms? Anyway, I could afford it, and I thought like I could do something with these rooms. This
Yeah.
house is by the airport, so I was able to rent out the other 3 rooms on Airbnb.
Yeah.
And even though I lived there, I had a lock on my door, and I wasn't there much. I was still at work, working really long hours. So I wasn't even there much. And when people would have layovers or something like that, I didn't even see these people. But it generated me anywhere between an extra $5,000 to $7,000 a month, plus what I was making at work.
Yep.
So I don't know if my advice is biased or silly, but I always tell people like buy the biggest house you can, because you can always do something with the rooms. You can rent them out. You can do Airbnb. But my understanding is Airbnb rules have changed drastically since I was doing it. Back then it was the Wild West, maybe like 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, I always felt like you can make some money growing marijuana out one of the other rooms, or I don't smoke weed, but you could do something. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I don't know if that's the right mindset. Like you can rent it out, you can grow weed, you could do microgreens, you could do something in this house. But yeah, I just always felt like more room is more room.
Yeah, I mean, I think you should get what you can afford. My big thing about it is that like a lot of the grooming when it comes to my buyer clientele is about like shaping that mentality. But I'll tell you, and I've said this to you before, your mentality is different. Like most people are not walking around thinking in that way. But I do have a great counter story to that, and very similar. I had a client maybe 2 years ago, young guy, bought he was working in the like HVAC industry, union, solid job. We went around, looked at houses. It was kind of just, search and rescue, I call. It's just like they're looking around hoping that something grabs them, not very intentional. And then I had a really good conversation with him of like, we need to be intentional about what this really means to you. Let's take a second to not just buy a house because people say you should buy a house. What does it mean to you? What does it give you? What does it afford you? What does your life look like with it? What does your life look like without it? Why are you doing this? And getting to that real root cause, we locked in. I'm not even kidding. I think we had that conversation 5 days later. He was under contract, bought his first home. Such a success story right there in that moment. Did not stop there. Took the house. It was again a 4 bedroom, had even a full basement. That was pretty. I don't think it had a kitchenette, but it was like pretty much like its own apartment. And he was like, "I'm living in this room." Actually, he even gave up the master. He went to one of the guest bedrooms, took it as his own, rented out everything. He rented out, he had a spot next to his garage. He rented it out as space for people to park their RVs monthly. He really just went in complete house hack mode. Did that for like a year, saved his money up, started his own company, started a junk hauling company, which shout out, I'm going to give a shameless plug to qhauljunkremoval, junk removal. Started that company and then literally left his job that he was making very good money at to really pursue this. And then now he's in his I think it's going into his second year this year of owning that company and thriving off of it and able to purchase multiple trucks, able to stay up with, everyone has this romanticized idea of what being an entrepreneur, being an investor, or being these things. And you don't think about the ugly stuff, what you have to invest in, what you have to spend money on that doesn't show up to people. Like that doesn't show up in my marketing. It doesn't show up in any of that. It's literally just in stuff that I have to pay because I have to continue to do business. And he survived that. And I really feel like when I've talked to him, because I still utilize him as his company, he is also a friend now. And he's still obviously in my referral pipeline of sending people to me. And I talk to him all the time of not me taking the credit, but him making those decisions that he made with that house. That changed the trajectory of where he was going in his life. And there's no doubt about it. And he believes that as well, and knows that this gave me the base to build a passive income that then allowed me to go make moves. And you're either going to have capital up front, someone gave you, or that you borrowed, or you're going to drive passive income to put yourself in different categories. And that doesn't show up for Grant Cardone, right? But that's an investment into a home that is an absolute success story when it comes to looking at a home as particularly just an investment and not necessarily my dream forever home.
Yeah, right. And again, that's qhauljunkremoval in Colorado.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Shout out to him.
Yeah, shout out to Aaron.
Yeah. So, yeah, me having a house helped me pay it off quicker because I had two sources of income now because my house was generating its own thing, basically sustaining itself.
Yep.
Yeah. I didn't have a realtor when I bought that house because I called and just the number, it was for sale. Do you think that might have hurt me in the long run? Or do you think that I had an opportunity, or do you think they could have negotiated something better for me or no?
So let's start here of what that means. What that means is when you're driving around a neighborhood and you call the actual sign in the yard of the house, you're getting the agent that is selling the home. Okay. So he has already created a contract that binds him between seller and agent at that point.
Okay.
Then he has to go speak to the seller and say, hey, I have a buyer that is unrepresented that I would like to represent. It usually ends up equating to more money for them. Generic scenario might be if it's two separate agents, they split 6% of the transaction. If it's a single agent, they might drop that down to 4% because it's still more and they are going to do kind of two jobs. But the biggest difference that it makes is that it changes his fiduciary responsibility from treating you as a sole entity that he has responsibility to then treating you what we call in the industry as a customer. He cannot, to do his job properly and represent both of you, he can't tell you their secrets and he couldn't tell them your secrets. It can be done, absolutely. I think that just human nature gets involved in that, right? Like it's really hard to have all the knowledge. He obviously had more knowledge about that seller than he had about you. So I see in those situations that it gets a little tight. I personally don't like running those transactions as much. I would literally rather refer you to another, buyer agent that I know. Hey, go to here, go to this person, because I know they're going to represent you with the responsibility that you deserve. So in a long-winded answer to that, yes, I think that if you had your own entity that represented you, that was their only job, I think that you should get fair treatment. You should get someone that's going to, negotiate and do those type of things rather than someone, I would say, that agent in that situation becomes a mediator. He just doesn't want to ruffle anyone's feathers. So he's just like, well, she told me she would pay this much and they said they would take this much. So I'm just going to try to make sure they meet there, and bless you.
Thank you.
And so I think that in that, I think negotiation and these transactions, I'll say it this way and I'll correct myself a little bit because I feel it's a war. It really is when it comes to representing your clients and negotiating the best deal for them. I look at it as negotiation shouldn't be fun. They shouldn't be friendly. They should be about the business. They should be, I feel, cutthroat, but they can be done very respectfully and professionally. And when I have those type of transactions with other agents, they're phenomenal. Doesn't happen a ton, but they are phenomenal when they do happen. But I would suggest, highlight the point of, I do think everyone should be represented by their own personal agent. I just think you'll get the best out of it. You'll get the most responsibility due to you by contract is in that way. Yeah.
So I've purchased two houses without an agent. The second one I did have an agent and things just fell apart And because it was a builder, they were like, your agent wasn't doing anything for you anyway. Um, because they have such set, things
Yep.
like, we'll give you this, we won't give you that, we'll give you this. So
Yep.
at the end, I didn't have an agent. I have a question real quick. You talked about when people sell a home and they leave with a lump sum of money.
Mhm.
Isn't capital gains taxes astronomical?
Well, it can be. It can be. There's a few different ways. So you can do a transition loan that doesn't actually allow your money to come out as a capital gain. So you can do that. And then the time frame. If you're doing it, that's a big conversation I have with my clients. Example is right now I have a client. He is from Ireland, lives here, and he is renting for about $95,000 a year. So buying a house for a couple of years, literally, if he can just break even over it about 2 years, he would save himself, in excess of probably $190,000. Um, but capital gains is something he's not used to because he's from Ireland. So I'm like, yeah, you would probably need to keep it a little longer than that. So let's really make a decision on that because you're going to have to keep it past 2 years. But absolutely, capital gains. If you are buying and selling and kind of putting yourself into the investment portion of thinking, I'm going to purchase this house as my primary residence, but I'm going to flip it. Yeah, you better check into those capital gains because you could get over 50% taxed on that. And it's obviously that money you think you're walking out with could get you could get pretty. I mean, it's not a fine, but it technically is a fine for buying a house and selling it within 2 years and making over $100,000 is the criteria. So it definitely is something that people want to think of, especially in hot areas or in areas where they've able to invest money that, it really sucks if you invest $80,000, come out with 150, but do it within 2 years and you've lost your 80 and then half of that 150. And you're upside down technically. So capital gains is a big thing in that, and your agents should be speaking to that with clients that are thinking, I'm going to be 2-3 years and gone. But for me, I always look to see, like you said, in your situation, I think hopefully you're reaping the benefit and the responsibility of the fact that you have two parcels of real estate in your portfolio, your own primary residence as well as another. And I always just tell people they're not making any more land. If you can make deals and buy more real estate and keep what you currently have, then do it. And if you can't, and you think that the next place gives you a higher ceiling, then sell it and move to the higher ceiling somewhere that can, give you more profit on the back end. But if you can keep it, keep it. Don't sell it. Don't sell grandma's house. Tell everybody that. Don't sell her house.
Yeah. Yeah. So my dad's, he's turning 90 years old this year. So we've been talking a lot about estate planning and things like that. And my brother's not going to have anything to do with their home.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I would just, because it's the family. I grew up in this home. I've never lived, I my whole life, I've only known this house. I haven't known anything else. Like my parents didn't move or anything. This is our family home. So yeah, I think that's important to me. Keeping that house is very important to me. I think I would forgo one of my houses in order to keep that house if something like that ever happened. But yeah,
I mean, surface level, it's funny you said that because in my head I was thinking, what would I tell her to do? And it was, I would rather have you sell the house by the airport than sell the house in Park Hill. I mean, just as simple as that. I mean, value of Park Hill and per square foot value, and then also the sentimental end of it. I mean, it's just simple. There's a emotional currency with that as well. So I think that I deal with a lot of people that get referred to me that they are like, hey, I got grandma's house now. And I think they expect, he's a real estate agent, he's just going to plot out how we can make some money off of this. And I'm like, keep it. Do not get rid of this. Like, whatever you need to do to move into it, all these things. Like, obviously there's a lot of information when it comes to how how that home should be willed to you, to avoid the relative tax of, like your father, however much that house is worth compared to how much they owe. And if it's nothing, that could be a huge difference. And they,
Yeah.
someone comes in and does a valuation and then they want to tax you on the difference. So it could be a $900,000, $1 million tax bill or amount that they're valuing, saying you owe taxes on this just because it goes from his name to your name. So there's some smart ways to do it, and you definitely want to educate yourself, but by all means, the best way is to keep it, because and I just mentioned that to say that's how systematically they put you in positions where you do have to sell the house, because a lot of people I know will get a tax bill and say, I can't afford that tax bill, so I got to sell the house to pay that tax bill. And and it's a farce if you know what you're doing up front. It's just the system of getting people to sell those homes in areas, and it's unfortunate, but it does happen quite a bit. And I tell all my people, like, just no, keep it.
Yeah.
I'm the real estate agent that will tell you not to sell when it comes to that part.
Okay. So I've had two friends in my life that got into a financial situation where they felt like they had to sell their property. Their business went under, they lost their job or something like that. And I was always like, rent out the rooms, do this, like do whatever you got to do to keep this house. You did mention that the guy with Q-Haul Junk Rental, that he was renting out like storage space. In my house currently, I rent out my garage to people who just want to park their car. It's not a lot of money. It's like maybe $200 a month, but it's my electricity bill. It's a little bit of the water, you know what I mean? So it's something, so I don't mind doing that. If somebody is in a situation where their finances have taken a turn, what do you because they don't want to. I've had one take it far enough where it actually went to foreclosure. Them just trying to keep the house. The other one, he sold his house quickly and hurry up and got out of there, and at least he had his money with him. But he regrets that to this day. Like, he tells me all the time, like, dang, if I would have kept that house, it was worth this. My mortgage was only that. I miss this house all the time. But he really regrets that. Do you have any tips for someone to keep their house if they're in a financial bind?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always going to suggest, I work with great lenders. I'm always going to suggest that you first contact the lender. See what type of, if there's anything possible that they can do. I mean, from the opportunity of, it might not be a refi opportunity, but there might be some opportunities that you can do a cash out, and get some cash. I mean, just borrow some cash from yourself out of the equity possibly, and then use that to just pay the bills. But I think house hacking. Go ahead.
Do you think they would give you a deferment, like give you a few months?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I think that with the standards that you've gotten from COVID, I think that you would be able to work in some deferment and at least give yourself, and I think at the end of the day, it's what's your direction and what's your vision. I think so what happens, and I don't know your friends, but what happens with that is that we go into survival mode. And when we are in survival mode, we are not in investment mentality or financial stability mentality. I always think about the show Atlanta with Donald Glover, with Childish Gambino. And there's an episode where this guy has him going around town trading all these things. He traded a sword for this and this and this. And he keeps working up into where he gets this dog. And then he takes the dog and they're going to have puppies and he'll get the money from the puppies. But he's like, I don't need that. I need money today. Like, I was going to sell my cell phone for $100. And then it's funny because the next episode, the guy walks in with a big old manila envelope of money and throws it to the Childish Gambino and says, there's the money from the puppies. And it was like $20,000. So his cell phone turned into $20K. But he made a comment in that episode of the reason that we're, and this isn't stating that it's poor people problems, but what happens from being instability, whether it be job, I've seen people have this situation because a child being on the way, that wasn't as much a financial thing in the moment, but it was in the future. And we just don't think and slow those things down and do the work to go find out the options. And so I would start with the lender. I think that's, I mean, first of all, it's the person you owe the money to. So I would contact them. If the loan's been sold, a lot of times if I don't just contact the who's holding my loan, I'll contact the original person that drafted my loan up. The person that was sitting at the closing table with you when you bought the home. I feel like if you have a good relationship with them and you feel like they're a great person for you as far as an asset, you should be able to speak to them and get some options and at least create a direction. Now, if you're like, you know what, I'm getting ready to start getting some money, unemployment, I had a job interview, I'm starting, it's just I'm going to miss, this month and possibly my money won't be right the next month, then deferment might come into play. They might give you some options of a cash out without refining. So that could be an option, taking some money against your equity. I would still not try to do that, but I would rather do that than short sale or sell quickly or definitely foreclose. I mean, anything I could do. If I was going to foreclose, I'm moving people in. I would literally hold a sign up on the road. If I didn't have a job, I'd go on the side of the road and hold up like 1 bedroom for rent, $800, whatever I needed to just get my mortgage and my, all my other utilities covered. I would do whatever I had to do to get that taken care of. Because a foreclosure, it's so hard to make it back for people. I mean, it's a journey for people just making it through their lifestyle and things after college and financial, situations to get their credit to where it needs to be to just purchase the first home for some people to make it back in after a foreclosure. I mean, it's just so tough that you're going to spend more time and money than like you said, if you got savvy and looked into getting some roommates and just saying, I would be willing to go sleep in my car to just rent the whole house out just to make sure I didn't lose it. I would do whatever. So yeah, I would say get savvy, look into what you are willing to do, but then also contact people. I think so many times there's utilized services that people don't reach out to for one reason or another. And the bottom line is go out and tell people what's going on to where you can actually get, the proper help or the proper direction that you need to make sure you don't lose your home.
Okay. Great advice. So when I was getting my second home, I was thinking about taking out equity out the first house, but the first house was already paid off. But I was thinking about getting equity out that house and getting a lump sum of money and then putting it down on the next house. And I ran this past my parents and they were like, absolutely not. They were like, once you pay off a house, let it go. Don't make yourself another bill, like you're going to have more money to pay off this house. So they're always anti borrowing against your home, taking out equity. They are so against that. Are you against that or only on emergencies? Like I know people who have taken money out of their home to renovate. I don't think that's something I would have done. I know people who have taken out equity out their home to decorate or build a pool and things like this. What do you think is a good scenario to take money and equity out your home? Is it only emergencies or what?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when it comes to your situation of making the transition, I go back into the same thing of I would rather you pull equity to make the second deal happen than not make the second deal happen, or sell the home, which is the same thing. That's getting the equity out of your house as well. It's just then you're not the owner anymore. You also are giving away the title. So I think that if you have the ability to make and purchase the second home without touching anything on the first, absolutely do that. But not everyone has that option. And to be honest with you, most people don't have that option. At that point, then, yeah, I look at there's options with the HELOCs, obviously things like that. There are some options, but once again, it's something that needs to be heavily scrutinized because the consequence of that on the back end is that you, by trying to procure a second asset, have now lost both of them. If something happens and you default or anything happens on that one loan, that's for a HELOC because they would be attached at that point. And you saying, hey, the equity from this house, I'd like to pull it into a loan to get me to get this house, or even use it as my mortgage to get this house. Well, if anything happens with that, both houses are going. You're not just losing the singular house. So that would obviously be a terrible situation and a terrible decision. But I tell my people when it comes to refis, look, we're refining for rates. We're not refining for cash.
Okay.
I always tell them that. Now, I also tell them, because it's really hard to tell people when they start learning about refis and understanding that they have some money in there. And I tell them, like, yeah, if you take it out, I have one client that he bought a house that it wasn't a complete fixer upper, but it definitely needed things done to accommodate what he wanted in a home. Didn't have the upfront money to do it. He went about 2 years. He bought before I want to say he bought like 2019, like pre-COVID. So interest rates, all these things. And he was able to refi. He took money out. He renovated his basement. He did some renovations out and put a deck on the back of his home. And then he used a little bit of it and also saved up money and used a little bit of it to build an attached garage. It didn't have a garage with the house. And honestly, he just upped his value of the home. So he just really reinvested it back into the home. I think altogether, I think he might have taken out 55, but I think the last time I saw kind of a market analysis of his home that I was looking at, I think he's probably naturally, he'd be up about 130, maybe 40. With the upgrades that he's done, I'd say market value, he's probably going to be able to walk away with like 180, 190 because of those upgrades that he did. So they were probably good. They'll probably work out for him, but it's no different than, flipping a home. You got to know the numbers. And the good thing about flipping is usually people don't really have an emotional attachment to all the things, where if you're refining to upgrade your home, you can't just see it from your lens of what you like and how you want to live your life the next couple of years. If you think eventually I'm going to sell this home and it's not my forever home, then you got to be careful with that. And I think you should engage an expert about it, because it could be risky. It could definitely be risky pulling out that refi money to even invest it back into your home. So I personally am a fan of leave it alone. If you're going to refi for the rate, not for the money. But I also like my lump sums at the end. I'm good with waiting, and I can be patient to get, instead of taking out $30,000 twice over 10 years, I'd rather sell the home at the end and have all the equity and not have to worry about that difference of what I've taken or, missing out on my investment. So I'm a fan of refining for rate, not for cash, unless it's needed to procure more real estate that you can afford and you feel comfortable with.
Okay, so every time I do one of these interviews, I kind of like go off into my own life, and I want advice for myself. So selfishly, so
you get to do what you want.
Thank you. So I was looking at this single family house, and it was so cheap, and I was like, wow, what's going on with this house? And it was 1 bedroom, 1 bath. And I was like, why would they even build a 1 bedroom, 1 bath house? But because the price was so low, I was just like, So I look at this house. The floor plan is super wonky. To go to the bathroom, you have to go upstairs, and that's the only bathroom. And this bedroom, it's like a really compact, little small house. And I thought about buying that house, and I was just like, I talked myself out of it, because I was like, it's going to be so hard to resell this house, because nobody wants a 1 bedroom house, right? And you would probably only use it for renters, and who would rent a 1 bedroom house? So all of the numbers, I didn't even question that. I was just thinking of different scenarios. How do you make good real estate decisions? And should I have bought the 1 bedroom single family house?
I'm gonna jump to the second question first, and the answer probably is no. You should not have bought it. I think in that situation, we would have needed to look at more than just the house. We would have needed to see land value, land valuation over time, because at the end of the day, you could have bought it, if your portfolio provided you the opportunity to sit on it and maybe do nothing with it, because that's possibly what you could have done is nothing with it. Now, I think that knowing you and having discussions, real estate with you and business type of conversations, I'm sure you would have figured out some savvy way of having somebody in there, and it would have been an office all of a sudden or something that you could have done. I know you. But I tell 99% of my clients, no, don't send me this. Like you said, because of the resale, at some point, and this is a good one, going back to our very first point about Grant, that is a bad investment. That should not be purchased because it would require so much investment into it. That makes it very volatile. To then resell it, I just feel like there's a whole bunch that would have to go on. It might be, I don't know what the house looked like or anything, but it could have been a scrap, and you're pushing that land. If it was a good enough lot, you're pushing that land for investors to come build on, and you make your money back that way. But I always say that you got to evaluate on resale, how big is the target audience that you would sell it to. Now, if a target audience is a family of 4, that's a pretty big market.
Right.
I can market them. If it's if we start talking about houses that are kind of set up for single people, well, in the market, yes, single people buy homes, but it's hard to attract a single person into that situation. So I would look at I would say no, based off of that, just off the top of my head, that it sounds like a 1-by-1. I mean, it's just like, go get a condo or, something else that could accommodate. But I've never heard of a standalone, it's like a studio apartment.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I was walking through it, all I could think of is where could I put another bedroom? Like, could I break the 1 bedroom up into 2, or could I do this? Or the laundry room was a really good size. And I was just like, I wonder, could this be a bedroom? But it didn't have windows. So now you got to get a window in there. And I was just like, yeah, how do we do this?
Yep.
So
if you're thinking like that, it's good. I think that mentality is great. And I have people that I work with that think like that. And I think it is an asset. It's not something that just like, if you're thinking like that, then you shouldn't buy it. But if it gets to the point to where it's like, man, this is just a lot. And, I'm always a fan of bring a contractor in, get a contractor over there, call somebody, get them over there. Hey, what would this look like to do this, that, and just get some ballpark. And I think it at least gives people a good idea, because I'll tell you, as an agent, I go into so many houses where people thought they knew what to do and they did not. And
right.
they've turned the dining room into a bedroom. And it's like, okay, I get it. You added the 5th bedroom, but this is wonky now. And this doesn't feel right. And there's a certain energy around that when I'm trying to sell a house, I am just trying to provide an energy, a platform, a flow to people, because you can't get too narrow-minded when it comes to reselling. And I say that because if you're investing in something and you're putting money into certain things, especially when you're not thinking of keeping them forever, then at some point you're going to have to resell that to somebody. And if you're thinking like that about the house, most times you're not selling it to another investor that has a mentality like you. You're selling it to a consumer that just wants to already be done. It wants it to look the way they want it to look. And it's going to be so hard to resell, and it'll sit forever. So I think you dodged a bullet with that one of skipping on the 1-by-1.
Yeah, I think so too. And I was also like, could I turn it into like a daycare, or like, what could this be? But yeah. Okay, back to me only caring about myself. So my situation right now is I own a 4-bedroom house that's paid off. Mm-hmm. And I thought I outgrew my 4-bedroom home, so I bought a 6-bedroom home. Mm-hmm. I don't go in the basement. I don't go in that bedroom down there. I have guest rooms that I don't even know what's in there. My cat has his own bedroom at this point. My dog has his own bedroom at this point. It's just way too much space. And I've only been in this house for like 4 or 5 6 months maybe.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about, it's in a beautiful location. It's at a beautiful place. I kind of want to stay in the house, but I would have to figure out, like, how is some of this space not so wasted.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about getting a roommate. I thought about selling this house and then downsizing. I thought about keeping this house. No, I can't keep this house and buy another house. I'm not willing to put that much. Yeah, I'm not putting that much money.
There you go.
It's getting wild, but yeah, I don't know. What do you think I should do? I could stay in the house. I could downsize. I could sell that house, move back to my old house, and take a year off.
What is your lifestyle suggesting? Because you know me, you know how it is when you talk to me. I'm always going to go, these are all routes. Absolutely. But those are all surface level. What I would always say to you, and I think I have, is the real root cause. What are you really willing to do, and what lifestyle are you trying to live? Because that, when I ask that question to buyers, to my to my friends, to my family, getting into that question really is like, if you're really going to be honest about that question, and I'm saying this to just anyone I'm asking it to, you're going to get to some real stuff. You're really going to find out, like I said, some people that are just like, I think I'm just buying this to prove to my parents that I can do it. And it's like, well, that's okay, but like, what is the life that you're going to live with that? Because these are big consequences and such behind it. It can be. So I would say with you, it sounds like, and I'm just, believe me, if I'm out of bounds here, tell me. It sounds like you've done the house renting thing. You lived that life. And I'm not sure if when you said kind of like, I outgrew it, I didn't take it as just with space. I took it as you just kind of outgrew it in mentality, and maybe the lifestyle of a lock on my door and renting and handling this, and all of these things are great. They serve their purpose. I had the challenge of buying a house, and I paid it off in years, in just a couple of years, because of what I've done. Now you're in a bigger home. Do you still have the same gusto, I guess? Do you still have the same energy that you could go around and round with that again? Or, like you said, is it a situation? Yes, you do. And because I think for you, and I don't want to say it a game like playing, but it's a challenge. It's a I have fun pushing the line as far as I possibly can, and I like to do things that other people aren't willing to do. And yeah.
I'm very able to do things that people aren't willing to do, and I think that's what's put me miles ahead. Because I work so much, I'm not at that house a lot, and that's not, even at the first house, I wasn't there a lot, so I didn't care, I didn't really care, because I'm not seeing you. I'm just like a ship in the night,
Yep.
So no, I don't feel like I have a friend that thinks like roommates and cohabitating with like somebody is beneath her. I've never felt like that, especially when you own the house. I've never.
It made you a landlord. You literally became a landlord in the house that you first purchased. Most people cannot do that. So I get it. You know what I mean? I understand that mentality, and I have people and clients and investors and that have that mentality like that. But I think it does come down to your mentality. Like, okay, I'm gonna flip a question back to you. Do you think you could take a year off working? Do you think you could do that really? Like, not in the romantic way of, yes, I'm working my butt off and I'm tired. Okay.
I absolutely not. It would be taking a year off of the structure and having like a little more leisure and being a little bit more creative and traveling a little bit more. But like month 2 or 3, I would be like, okay, what are we doing? Yeah.
I would say if you were my client, I would say, because I know some of you, right? I would say, okay, if you come back to me with a year plan of what you're going to do, and it involved all the things that I know about you, that I know that those are scratches that you need to itch, then I would listen to it. And I'd say, okay, let me give you some houses that could be, a downgrade, or, you move back. Oh, we could go through all the scenarios and the routes, but I would obviously start with the root cause of, could you really do that? Because if you did not have a plan by month 2, you would be going crazy. And then you would go right back into that thing of, what can I do right now to push the line and make more money and make more money? You would go right back into it. But you would go back into it down a piece of real estate. And so then it's, well, what was the reasoning behind that? So I think with that, I mean, there's a lot of options that you have. It just really comes down to what you're willing to do and what the real root cause kind of behind it and what you want to accomplish. That's how I would start having that conversation, whether it be with myself or with a client that came to me with that same scenario and saying, what should I do? And I would start with that root cause of, well, why do you feel this way? Why can't you just sit on a house that has extra rooms? Why can't you? But I think for you, what you see is opportunity. You see, people just see a big house and they're like, I got a big house. And you're like, I got a house that's sitting here that could probably be making me money. And I want to make more money. So that would be in the conversation as well. If you had the wherewithal to make that decision and say, yep, I'm going to rent out rooms. I'm going to rent out the basement, renting room by room, this, you're going to make more money that way than if you just, moved out and let a family of 5 move in there.
Right.
And so you would just have to weigh those options of, what is it worth to you? Is it worth to go back to the other house and rent this house out? It sounds like it's an upgraded house. It sounds like on the rental market, it could go up, but the rental market is kind of taking a little bit of a dip. In some areas. So that would be considered as well. So there's a lot of moves, but I would say I couldn't tell you, hey, do this, but I would start having a conversation with you of extracting that real root cause and why do you want to do this, or what is motivating you and what would fulfill you. And then we would take our steps from there, and just, it's kind of like eating elephants, just one bite at a time. And we just go from there.
Yeah. Sounds good. Well, Dustin, I don't think you have a lot more time with me. I think you have to go. Huh?
That's unfortunate. This is a great conversation.
Yeah, and I have like 4,000 more questions that I want to ask you. So
I'm always available.
Okay, if it's okay with you, I would love to have another talk with you and run this back, and maybe we can do it in person.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. I would be more than happy. I mean, it's definitely something. I'll say I don't know everything for sure, but I always like having open dialogue about situations like this. And hopefully if there's somebody out there that hears it and it's like, it makes them think differently, or, it helps them navigate a situation, then it's awesome that it's worth it. But if not, it was just a great conversation that, definitely I feel like I can take away from. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dustin, for helping me get my ducks in a row. I really appreciate it. And we're going to have to do this again. I think I'm going to keep you on this call a little longer just so I can beg you for another time we can do this. But thank you so much, and I really appreciate you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I truly do appreciate it. Love that you have the platform and gave me the opportunity to come and share this space with you. It means a lot to me.
Thank you so much. And you have a good day.
You as well.
All right. Bye-bye.